Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This, of course, is Comics News Today, and I am Chester C. Busby III, and I'm very happy to be here with you and talking about the news on this, for me, a beautiful, beautiful sunny day, which is kind of a nice thing because got up this morning and said happy birthday to my wife, who I will not say how old has become, but it's in a significant number she's hit today. And of course, she has a beautiful day to enjoy as she goes to work because, we're adults and birthdays don't care and work doesn't care about birthdays. But she's off to do her thing. And of course, I also want to mention real quick, I just saw the notification pop up that Manny Correa over at Good Dog Press, of course, just we call him Manny. It's his birthday today too. And he's kind of around that significant age of my wife as well. But nevertheless, I shall not pick on the old people today, especially seeing as I'm basically one of them. Uh, but
Yeah,
uh, uh,
and
welcome.
and you already told us your wife's age a couple
Yeah, no,
shows
she's
behind.
50 today. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's I don't know why that matters. I've never really cared about those things, but for women in particular, 30 and 50 are big deals for them. For men, I don't know that maybe 18 for an American or 21 or these kind of age legal ages, governmental ages, maybe have meaning to us, but I don't think men really care much about it. But here and over in Asia, though, they have some interesting things. It's different for men and women, but there are certain age moments in your life that are considered bad years and are considered good years, and they're weird numbering too. I don't know the all of the uh, astrology that's around it, but it is interesting, and they actually make a big deal out of it. A lot of the holidays they don't do much. But the ones where the age holidays actually they do quite a bit of they actually get quite involved. It's interesting. We have Gigadeath comic book is here. It says hello, Chester and chat. Well, hello, and of course, welcome to everybody else that's listening. Hello, Nick, and thank you guys very much for being here. Thank you for subbing the channel. Thank you for all your likes and all the other things you guys do. You guys are awesome. Do keep in mind the thing that helps us the most day to day though is hitting that share button and let people know because YouTube's notification system does not work well. And it's this strange algorithm they use. They need to fix it, but I doubt it's a
but we still
priority.
like those likes as well.
Oh, we love those too, of course, of course.
Yeah,
But we love just having you guys here. And thank you. But today we do have a few bits of news. Today the content is less, but it's more directed. There's some actual news today, which is interesting. And here is the middle of the week for you guys, right? It's a hump day, right?
yeah. It's a Wednesday,
A
Odin's
Wednesday.
Day.
Goodness gracious. Yes, it's Woden's Day. That's right. Absolutely. And actually, did you watch that American Gods that came out? Had that really great actor from Deadwood that is a wonderful actor.
Shane, shoot,
Yeah, I can't
I
think of
know
his
who
name
it is.
either.
I know it's Shane something. I
But
believe
anyway,
I'm
that dude.
blanking on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, everything I see him in, I love him. He's even if the show might itself might not be great, like Monarch. They're playing like if there was a modern day king living in a skyscraper, type of thing. And even in that, which was not a good show, he was awesome.
oh, Kingdom. It was really a David and Goliath retelling.
Was it? No.
Yeah, Kingdom. NBC Kingdom.
I believe it
Yeah,
was called over here in Asia. It was called Monarch.
right.
So
Over here in the States, it was called Kingdom.
wow, that's cool. I mean,
And yeah,
they do change things like that sometimes. They do shift names around, and it's interesting with the logic behind it. Because I'm sure there's some kind of psychology that they have all worked up in some kind of computer that they throw everything in. I'd imagine, but yeah, I
right,
like that guy. But I like him. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, American Gods, and he
right,
plays Wednesday in that, of course. And
correct.
have you seen that? You see that show?
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, I think there's a lot of trouble production behind the scene, and you can tell when it's on, but when it's not, you can really see, you know,
Yeah.
the the where they dropped the ball.
Well,
Unfortunately,
I think it's a bit too try hard is one of the problems with it, and the second problem is you get certain episodes, which I think what you just alluded at, where you'll have some episodes that are cool, awesome, nice storytelling, and then other ones that are very political, right?
Right,
And not done right, in the not done in a correct political way. And of course it messes with the
right.
tone, right? Because you have this story, and if you're going to be political, if you're going to be trying to make some statement about white people and their patriarchy and all that kind of nonsense that's going on, well then do that. Tell that consistently, but they're not. It's just maybe it's one of those situations where you have a different director for each episode or something. 'Cause you see a lot of shows do like that, and maybe
I
that's
mean,
why.
the problem is it was a Brian Fuller production, and you know how he is. He comes up with the greatest stories, he writes them, and then he gets fired or he leaves the project.
Yeah, yeah,
And
but
it's always the same with every you know production he's been on. So I'm
mhm,
thinking the problem is this guy because he every time they hire him, he starts up the show. It's awesome, and then he gets fired
yeah,
or he has to leave or
yeah.
whatever.
Unfortunately.
And then
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, the premise is good though, right? I mean,
right.
it's a good premise.
I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed the audio driven version as well. And if you want to hear it, while you're driving, I would definitely recommend the audio version.
Okay. All right. Because basically it's just Odin is up to something. He's trying to bring back the power of his power and bring back the gods. But I think I don't know about the book, of course. All I know is the show, and it would have been
Hmm.
helpful if they had added a little bit of cosmology. Just a touch. I mean, we don't want to tell the whole story. We don't need everything. We don't need to know how everything works, but a little bit of cosmology of why things are, just a touch of that information, I think would have been helpful to the storytelling. But really, the problem with that show was the inconsistency between one episode and another, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the real problem. I like the concept that I love the concept of the little bit of cosmology they gave us was the fact that the gods are completely dependent upon our attention, right? They are powered by our belief about our understanding of them, so that the modern gods that were in charge were things like the internet or what have you, right?
Yeah.
That concept was kind of interesting, and I imagine the book fleshed it out a lot better than they did in the TV show, I would assume.
Yeah. I mean, fairly a little bit more than what is shown on the television. But the concept of it is basically people bring their gods with them, and as long as people believe at them, they continue to exist. Whether it's true belief or they know of them, then their powers is really
Yeah.
strong or very low.
Yeah, meaning human consciousness brings reality into makes reality itself, and that's really cool. And it's like you said, I've heard it's having production problems as well, and I know there was supposed to be another season coming, but it kind of falls in the same type of political nonsense, unfortunately, that seems to be plaguing many things. Like you remember that movie that came out a couple years ago? It's called the Gods of Egypt, right? I think it was called
Right.
Gods of Egypt, and you had a whole bunch of people yelling and screaming about they're not Egyptians, roar! And then some people saying, "Well, they need people to sell it." That had nothing to do with it. That story was loosely based off of the old Mesopotamian stories, right? That's what that was based upon, the old Egyptian stories. Because here's the thing:
Right.
if you actually bother to actually go read the histories instead of just listening to, you know. To just some TV or show or some movie, if you actually read, you would understand that all the gods that are kind of listed throughout the whole world, they describe those gods. They are tall giants, they are white, blue-eyed or light-eyed, and light-haired. So all they were doing was taking the old stories of the gods and trying to flesh it into something real, into an action popcorn movie, and actually making Thoth black is inconsistent. He shouldn't have been. He should have been a giant white, a white giant guy. right? Because that's what all the guys, even the Africans said they're gods with this, guys. So it's they were actually trying to be, in a way, historically, not historically, or sticking to the stories of the old time and being accurate inside of silly little popcorn movie is what they were trying to do. And I don't have any problem with that, but people don't know that, they don't get it, right? And
Well,
yeah,
it,
I agree,
it
Giga. I like Gods of Egypt too. I thought it was fun. It's a silly little popcorn movie, sure, but it's fun.
I mean, it's kind of like what I say in every show, your perception shapes your reality. So
Yeah.
if your reality is, this, then you're going to shape it to match it. And that's always been the case for everything.
Hmm.
You know, if a believer meets a non-believer, then they'll try to convert that non-believer to their way, or just like a regular salesman, you're going to shape this reality for that potential customer to buy these goods or product, and
Hmm.
get them to see your fantasy. Kind of like the writers, creators. You're selling the readers or the audience the vision of your creation, and
Sure.
hopefully they'll buy into it and become involved with it to continue on.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that a lot of people tend to forget.
Well, everything's politically charged these days, and
Yeah,
I think you have other little. It's just people are simply uneducated. The whole Western world is becoming less and less educated, and it's not only shocking, but it's incredibly sad, because one other little thing that kind of plays into that whole concept about the Egyptian thing, which keeps coming up. Those people in Egypt, they're not Egyptians. They're not. They're
right.
Muslims that came in and murdered and raped out the Egyptians. The Egyptians are
So
gone. They don't look.
my
The
theory,
Egyptians don't look
yeah,
anything like that. That's not what
right. My
Egyptians are.
my theory about why we're becoming lesser educated, and I can't speak for the rest of the Western world, but for here in America,
Hmm.
I blame it on the SATs, because teachers are teaching students to pass the SATs or whatever standard testing than actually teaching them,
Oh,
and that's the difference.
I took the SATs. I got like a 13 something. It was pretty good. It
Right,
wasn't perfect though. I had two
but
people in my class that got perfect SATs, which I think was 1600, right? I think that was
right,
perfect. I had two in my
but
class. It's pretty impressive.
yeah. But here's the thing: was your teacher teaching you to pass the SATs, or were they actually teaching you?
No, they were just teaching us. Of course, high school has a lot more to do with
Right.
teaching you how to be a good citizen, a good human, than it does about actual
Well,
educating you. But yeah.
to bring you up to speed to here, if you were raising your kids over here in the United States, they would be teaching you how to pass the SATs, and that's about it. Because you know why? Because a lot of states pass laws that teachers, you know, salary are tied to the performance of your SATs or
Yeah,
whatever
it's
state standard thing.
George
So
Bush's
teacher,
No Child Left Behind. It was a
exact,
good idea, but horrible in actual implementation. Uh, let me
exactly.
let me call
And
you here.
so I would definitely be recommending, those who can vote or talk to your congressman to repeal that law, because it's
Yeah,
not helping.
I'm not exactly
And
sure
it,
what
and it
the
goes,
how the law stands now, but yeah, if it's still in effect, they should. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, yeah, it's still in effect. Nobody talks about it because nobody remembers it.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately, but it did a lot
but
of damage though. Let me catch up with the chat here.
yep,
Let's see here. Yes, Nick W says, "Don't invoke Odin, Denali." Yeah, that's a fair point, dude. We don't want that kind of trouble. Uh, Giglades says, "Yeah, it happened to Fuller on Star Trek Discovery." Yeah, this Fuller guy, he seems to be good at what he does, but then again, maybe he's just a person who has a vision and he's not willing to bend the knee, but he's too good to be ignored. I don't know, or maybe he's some kind
pretty,
of trouble. I don't know.
I think that's what it is, because he's done Dead Like Me, Pushing Daisy. He worked on the first Heroes
Hmm.
season, and everything he's been part of, it succeed. Once he's taken off of that project fails spectacularly, because you know you can see the quality of the season drop.
Uh,
Boom.
yeah. And just to yeah, the full there is something going on with Fuller. I agree. We've covered it
Mhm.
enough that something is going on with that. Well, I'm curious what it is, but get on with the news, dude. I will get to it. Once again, I will mention to Giga that Gods of Egypt is a guilty pleasure of mine, which I already read, but I'll read it again because that is a very interesting little movie. Like I said, it is very popcorny in its creation, but the concept, the story behind it is actually kind of interesting because what it's telling the story of course, is the battle between Horus and Set, and but it's also has a mixing in of the Egyptian version of the story of Babel, and it's a cool little story actually. I would suggest you check it out and not listen to the morons. Gigadeath says it's the same with Prometheus. The engineers are the white gods, so to speak. No, absolutely, it is. They're simply taking it now. What the ancient people said, like I said, even the Africans who are black, their gods were giant whites with light eyes and light hair, right? And they actually express there's two of them, and they're both white, but slightly different in their heights and stuff like that. I mean, that's the way it is. You find them in Japan, South America. Why do you think the conquistadors had such a easy run of it when they ended up into South America? Because they thought they were gods returning, because they were white skinned people. Right? It is, and I like the way that Prometheus tried to make them some alien-esque thing. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, well, you see it all over the place. Avatar, in a way, is the Sumerian story or the Mesopotamian story. It just kind of reversed, right? And it's also Ferngully. Uh, Chicken says quickly, everybody stream at once. Well, dude, we stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day, and we've been doing it for a long time. Right, so it is what it is. Nick W says, "Not alone, but lol, I enjoy it for what it is. It is schlock for sure. Yeah, no, it's good schlock. Look and stay. Say learning versus phonics, repetition versus study. Yeah, no, I don't know. I've been hearing this from Denali and other people. Of course, I haven't lived in the States in over 2 decades. So my mostly of my adult life, I haven't been in the States actually. So I try my best to keep in touch with things, but I'm not there. And it seems that things have shifted. I know when I was a kid in school, they were trying to make you a thinker. Was the point. They were trying to make you a person who would research and observe and understand and quantify and contemplate. These were the concepts that were being taught when I was a school age child. These days, it sounds like they're not doing that.
Nope. Nope.
Which I would say is unfortunate because that was one of the strengths of the West is they do that because other people around the world, in Asia or India or other places, they do exactly that, and they've always done that. Memorize this specific thing. We don't care about what your
So
opinion is, right?
right. So if you want to know why the rise of dumb people in
Yeah,
millennial in that generation, well, think about the shift in education.
yeah. And it's weird because living here in Japan, and they're in the top three educated countries all the time, right? I mean, decades this is true. So you're like, ooh, these are smartest people, best educated people in the world. But actually, the Japanese aren't smart at all. They're very
Right.
capable at what they do, but you can't sit and have a conversation with them because they can't contemplate. They have no ability. Because they go through school, they never ask questions. The teacher sits there and talks the entire time, and they listen and take notes. That's it. They don't ask simple questions. And, one of the things I do in my school on a daily basis is to try to open the minds of my students beyond my responsibility of simply teaching them English. But I try to open their minds and get them, and I teach them in the old way. I meaning, I ask them questions, I challenge their thinking, and I get them to interact. It takes a bit of work because I'm dealing with Japanese people and they're not used to it. But well, the good thing about it is over here, or at least with my school, my retention rate is nearly 100%. And children are the business. I mean, I have some adult classes too, but children, when I get a kid come in, they're going to be with me from say kindergarten all the way up to they're finishing high school. So that's 12, 13 years. I have those kids with me, pretty much guaranteed. Like I said, my retention rate is almost 100%. This gives me that period of time I know I have. So when I teach the kids in that mindset, meaning I have 12 years to educate these kids on English, but I'm going to educate them onto how to think. Because one of the problems with teaching English, particularly challenging over, say, another language, if I was going to teach something different, is the fact that English uses metaphor constantly. And I think the average English speaker doesn't understand that, whereas many other cultures, particularly other languages, don't do that. They'll use metaphor occasionally, but they don't use it every other sentence like we do, right? Having to, and you cannot, it's impossible to teach as an ESL or English as a second language. It's impossible to teach children every single solitary metaphor. You can't do that. It's impossible. So what you need to do is educate them into how do Western people think? How does English think? And by doing that, you can then give them an understanding of how to speak proper English. But along the way, I also challenge them as much as I can, and I've been very happy with the results I've gotten. But it is a very different approach from what they're used to. But this has nothing to do with comic books whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah,
So, leaving that topic, let's get on to the news.
yeah. All right. Well, the first one here, we actually have news today. Uh,
Yep.
so uh, yeah, let me jump over to it over here and share with Denali so he can see.
Yes. That is important because we were being too political already. A thumbs down.
Did we?
Yay.
Oh, whatever.
Yep.
Whatever.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Or or it was too boring. Too boring.
Maybe.
Legendary comic writers behind Marvel's Punisher and Miss Marvel fears for the grim and total unsustainable state of the comic industry. So he's Jerry Conway's talking about the state of the comics industry right now and how he fears it's not going to continue on, it's going to fall because of decisions being made. So I guess I can imply that he's actually able to speak up and tell it to this news. It's like, here's my thoughts. I don't think the comic's gonna, as it is gonna continue on.
No. And of course, he's right. And we have another story today that's going to tie into this directly. And basically, we know we've been talking about over here the fact that Marvel is there is some rumor going around that Disney's going to sell Marvel or simply lease it out. And of course, we're seeing IDW do that. And the interesting thing is to me that we know IDW is struggling mammothly. I mean, in some ways, more than Marvel, really. And they're actually up for sale. But yet it's
Yep.
but Disney is using IDW as their as a place to put the Marvel comic books. We're seeing more and more of that. So I'm kind of wondering if Disney's thinking about actually just buying IDW. I wonder if that might
I
happen.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I think that talks already been made behind the scenes, and they're saying, we'll have you publish Marvel stuff, and you get to continue going doing what you're doing.
Mm. And I do see something in this article that I keep seeing a lot. It seems to be very important to the politically to the people involved.
Hmm.
It says over 4 decades later, Captain Marvel is rocketing toward $1 billion. They keep using that $1 billion. They're desperate to get there, and I hope they do actually.
No,
But
they
they
got they
really
got
like that
there.
number. Yeah,
Yeah, this weekend got Captain Marvel got to that $1 billion
there you
mark.
go. All right, good.
Um,
But then it continues saying the Punisher has also been featured on both the small and big screen. Most recently, he starred in Netflix original series The Punisher. That's streaming giant canceled earlier this year after 2 seasons because it wasn't Punisher and it was just a stupid drama. That's why no one wanted it. But he
yeah,
does get into the kind of business of it, and he goes on and talks about the general problem And it's a pretty interesting article. I would suggest you go read it. We're not going to cover it in its entirety, but this dude, of course, has been around a long time. He is responsible for some pretty big characters. He's a famous dude. So this is on Business Insider, and
Yep.
which is a weird place to find something about comic books, but there you go. And it's the legendary comics writer behind Marvel's Punisher and Miss Marvel fears for the grim and totally unsustainable state of the comic book industry. Go give it a read. It's by Travis Clark. It is a pretty good article.
And
Uh,
in interviewing Jerry Conway, who is very famous
yes.
for killing Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely check this out. I think this is one more I think is more to read, but because his his ideas are really no different than what we've been talking about over here and all you guys been saying in the chat. I mean, it is, a pretty standard thing, but it's interesting to see a conversation with him because honestly, I didn't even know he was still alive. I was kind
He was.
of
He
kind of
made
surprised.
comments before, where he said he wasn't. He felt kind of disgusted that law enforcement would wear the Punisher symbol because it would send the wrong message, in his
Oh, that's right.
opinion.
That's right. We did, and I probably said the same thing at that time. I didn't know he was still alive. So poor guy. I just want him dead, I guess. But yeah, just go check this one out. But it's nothing that we haven't talked about. We know, but it's yeah, it's really unfortunate what they're doing. We know they're killing the industry and unnecessarily. And really, he talks about other things, but for us, we've been talking about this for many months, and obviously with what is floating to the top of the issue for me beyond the silly politics because we know like say with Marvel, right, because we're talking about Marvel here,
Hmm.
not every book is bad. They have some good books coming out, right? There's some garbage too, but there are good books, right? But I think beyond the silly politics and the disrespecting your fans and that which you should never do, the real problem is the alternative covers and the constant number ones. It's this kind of nonsense that people have been screaming about for what, coming on 30 years now, and they still
Right.
do it, man. They still do it. And they can't learn, they can't stop, and it's killing it. I mean, they come out with, you have certain comic book companies, they come out with every book that comes out will have like 6, 8, 10 covers. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop it, right? It's killing us, and it's killing because it's killing the comic book store, right? This is really what's killing them because they can't get in they because in order for them to have all those covers, it's not like they can just order, oh, let me have two of each or so. They don't do like that. What they do is they come out with a crap A cover or first cover, right? And then in order if you get the second one, you have to order a certain number of books. And then more to get the third, the fourth, the fifth. So in order to get all of them, you have to order a ton of books, which you can never sell because you can't. They can because there isn't enough demand because the books are not that popular, right? This is what's killing them.
Right. I mean, and we see it still with a lot of successful indie things. I don't
Yeah,
want to rag on the Absolute Comics, but when Benny was showing all those comic, I'm like, Benny, didn't you learn as well as working in the industry? But I guess when you're too close to the industry, you're kind of blinded,
true. That is true.
to
Um,
what's going on.
Now you could make a slight argument about that is an Indiegogo or a crowdfunding project, and having alternate covers as part of that project is simply an incentive. You could make that argument, but at the same time,
Yeah,
if you're looking at any kind of speculation type of market on your book, where something like White Widow is certainly worthy of, we haven't really
yeah,
read the thing yet, but the art is stunning. Inside and out, right? So, a speculation market on that could be good, right? But you
mhm,
adding more of those covers actually hurts that in the long run because you're thinning out the book instead of keeping it a single thing, right? But
right.
it is what it is. Um, uh, Chicken says, how long till Conway is unpersoned? I'm sure it's already happened. Nick W. When an old lefty like Jerry Conway speaks out about the industry, it must be in bad shape. Fair point, dude. Fair point. Anyway, we're sitting at the halfway point. We do have three other very interesting stories we're going to cover today, but
Right.
sitting we're at the halfway point of today's show. What I'd like to do is watch a trailer.
Alrighty.
Oh, Denali, 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 Denali. I'm so worried about
Arthur,
this one.
does it help to have someone to talk to?
All right. Just watch it, and we will talk about it.
That's Harley Quinn, by the way.
My mother always
Hmm?
tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose
Talking about it. Don't.
to bring laughter and joy to the world. Hey, stop them! Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Wow. Now Joaquin is amazing. He is what it is, but I don't want the movie they're making. I don't want this. I don't need the Joker to be a victim. I don't want him to be a victim. He's a bad dude. And we don't need to
He's
know
being
why
a victim.
he's a bad dude. He is a victim.
Well, I was thinking about it as I'm watching this, and I'm saying, why doesn't Batman kill? Why doesn't Batman, do this? And we always talk about, because it would make him a true vigilante instead of somebody who's trying to be a simple opponent. And I don't think we talk a lot, maybe he sees them as all victims, this guy's victims.
In a way, maybe.
And he tries to save them. It's that never-ending struggle that I'm going to try to save you. You're in your
behind a mask.
darkness, and I'm trying to pull you out.
But they're making Batman kind of the villain in this. You can see on the outside of it.
Bruce
But
Wayne.
dude, Joaquin looks like he's
my
putting
life
in a
was a
killer
tragedy.
performance, dude.
The second Oscar.
Maybe.
One.
But now I
Joker.
realize
You play the Joker, you'll be Oscar.
it's a comedy.
But no, I think that would probably be a good story. Batman story.
Yeah.
Him seeing his rogue galleries as people that he has to save. Sure, he beats them up, but because they're insane. But he's trying to save them as well, and that's why he doesn't kill them. I think that would be a kind of cool story to follow through or something like
Yeah,
that.
maybe. I
I
mean,
don't
I like the idea of that that Batman sees them as victims and the reason he doesn't kill. But I think he does. I think the reason he doesn't kill is it has nothing to do with Batman. It has to do with our ideas and perceptions of what a hero is. Right? It's not
Right,
about
right,
the character as a living thing, breathing thing. It's about our concepts, or at least the old concepts. Because these days,
right.
the villain's got to be good guys, right here,
But
right?
it makes sense, right? It makes more sense, if we frame it that way.
Yeah,
And
but I
then
don't
you
want
don't
that,
have
dude. I'm not
what?
interested at all, and none of these people in chat are interested either. They're not. Chicken says, more misunderstood villain nonsense. Yeah, exactly. Now it looks like
I'm not talking.
Joaquin.
I'm not really talking about the movie here because it's just another
Yeah, no,
guided
I
thing.
get what you're saying,
Yeah.
dude. I understand what you're saying
Mhm.
100%. You're saying that it's more logical. Completely understand.
Mhm.
But looking at this trailer,
Right.
it's I don't want it. I don't want this movie at all. And I'm going to watch it because Joaquin looks like he's kicking ass in this movie,
Yeah.
dude. You have to go watch it because damn, that
Right.
looks really good. But I just,
No, no, no.
yeah, it is what it
Again,
is.
I'm not talking about the movie
I
because it's
understand.
misunderstood. I'm talking about this pitch right here for a story is better than what they're talking about or writing about right now with Batman, which I would rather read about. Just
Oh well,
saying.
that's because of Tom King. And he's a depressed, unhappy person, and it goes into his comics because he's got to express himself.
No, no.
Yeah, where some reason where he's sitting on our general couch, which is unnecessary. But I don't know, guys. What do you think? Don't care. Yeah, people are kind of giving this similar comments because we're all seeing exactly what it is. It's exactly what
Yeah.
we don't want. We don't care about the origin. We don't want it.
Yeah.
We're not interested. We don't need to know where Joker comes from. We don't need it. We don't need it. But
I
aside from that, damn Joaquin,
Yeah,
that's looking awesome.
yeah,
I
and
have to point out something. Hi guys, I'm just dropping in to point out something regarding Joker and humanizing of the character.
Yeah.
Batman, the animated series, has been humanizing all the Batman villains for decades now. Them doing it on the feature film is just a cakewalk.
Yeah, I
yeah, but
understand what you're saying, George, and they did that to a point, but they still needed punishment, right? In this
and
situation, he's a complete victim of society, and he's the rise of the cure for the cancer, is what they're doing in this. Obviously, they even mention Batman, or by simply saying people in masks and the
but
negativity of it.
Batman is not even there, and
No,
Thomas
but
Wayne is there. So
yeah,
but the point being is, for the anime series, they didn't really delve on the Joker's part. Yeah, there's other villains like Mr. Freeze, where he went from a comical, you know, C-lister villain to this, guy with a lot of pathos,
hmm
you know, and that was interesting as well.
yeah,
Um, with the Joker, you don't really need that because the Joker is unpredictable and he always going to be changing. One writer, will make him like, oh, he's the Red Hood. The other writer will say, no, he's
well,
immortal. He's
that's
always been
that's a good
around.
point. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Chicken Sith here says, it's just Maleficent again. All monsters are just made that way by society. He said also see Charles Manson's defense. Yeah, no, and you could say, okay, well, we're seeing this all across the board, right? Is this some kind of agenda, or more than likely, are they just a bunch of untalented, uncreated hacks that can't do anything but, oh, well, why don't we just take the bad guy from these famous things and switch them and we'll make them the good guy? It's brilliant. Put it on the film. Spend the money. That's what they're doing, right? It's
well,
yeah,
they
it is
only
what it
do
is.
that because it ends up making money.
Yep,
So,
yep,
and studios, for all their faults and stuff, they love making money.
sure.
So
Yeah.
so if the idea is sound and they know they're, it's like, let's do the Joker and let's make him humanized because not a lot, it hasn't been done before, and you'll see that
Mhm. Yeah, but then
narrative
again, you get
spin out.
you get Ragnarok, Wakanda, which it should not have been called Black Panther, and Captain Marvel. All of those extremely mediocre movies making big money for them. So hey, they're going to keep doing it, right? Now, Infinity War,
Yep,
in amongst that nonsense, was stellar. It's certainly the best Marvel movie ever made, easily. It's still not my
yep,
favorite one, but that was a really well made movie, incredible pace and pacing, intense movie. So we get this really, really, truly Oscar worthy movie. Of course, we've already talked about the Oscars. We don't need to bring up that nonsense. But in amongst it, we have these three, very mediocre things. Ant-Man and Wasp as well, very mediocre. So it is what it is. But they're making money, so they're not gonna stop doing it, right? And that is what it is. If the Joker is a victim, does that make Batman a victimizer? Yep, I'm sure he's going to be part of that. You can see that. But once again, just
no, he was the little kid, the one he was giving a smile on. That was Bruce Wayne.
yes, but they mentioned masked vigilantes. So who is the masked vigilante they're talking about?
It was him. He was wearing a mask, clown mask.
Oh, so he starts out as a hero, or he is a
Yep,
hero. Wow, dude.
yep.
Wow.
You either die a hero or you live to become the villain.
Wow, so he
Bum bum
literally
bum.
is the good guy. All right, cool. All right then, fine. Let's move over here now. Continuing with that story where we're talking about with Jerry Conway. Sorry, we have this right here. Go ahead, Denelli.
IDW launches new Marvel line with Lee, Kirby, Dickos, and more.
hmm
So they're doing the master work piece
Uh-huh.
of the old golden age uh Marvel stories. So the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, you know, all the classic 60 books, and they're launching all those.
Yep. Now they're calling it pinups, but I'm assuming they're actually doing the comics as well. Or are they simply just doing
Right.
pinups?
No, they're doing the comics as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at that old Doctor Strange. Look at it. Yeah. It's one of my favorite characters, man. I've read all those over and over again, especially the Ditko run. I mean, way back, yeah, it was a really good run. Unfortunately, I don't own any of those Ditkos though. All my Strange stuff is starting in the 70s, early 80s, I guess. I wouldn't mind getting a hold of those old Ditkos, but that would probably be difficult. But Yeah, I don't know. Once again, IDW, it's not Marvel, but here they are, and we talked about it. So it's
Yep.
something weird is going on. It's
It's you're slowly seeing. I mean, it goes with those rumors where Disney is thinking of shutting down
Yeah.
Marvel comics because it's not making them money. You see them leasing it out like they usually do because that's Disney. They tend to lease out property instead of make them in house and collect fees on that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think this is just they started with Spider-Man for kids, so they're slowly getting it doing it so the market doesn't react as like and get used to it when they
Yeah.
finally announce, hey, we're going to actually close Marvel. Again, rumor, speculation,
Hmm.
but don't be surprised when they do announce it.
Yeah, I'm feeling more and more that actually we might see Disney simply buy IDW, because IDW we know is in really really deep water, and well,
Hmm.
like we've mentioned before, a lot of us from the comic book point of view, we think of IDW as simply a comic book company that sells IPs, right? But they are actually involved in movies and TV and games and stuff. They're far broader than simply something like Image is. Right now, Image might try to
Right.
contract out or get contracts for their books becoming movie, sure, but IDW is actually involved in that doing that kind of thing. So the IPs that they have and the things they have, Disney might want to buy it up because we know that Disney is buying the world. Chicken Sis says, Nick, that's the point. Look at the comics. They want the heroic to be villainous and the villainous to be heroic. Yes, they do. They're exactly doing that. This was what we saw with the Joker video, and of course, George came in and mentioned that this is not something new, but what is new is the way they're pushing it, right? And how they're pushing the villain is actually the good guy, and the good guy is actually the villain. Look what they've done with Superman. Look what they're doing with Batman. I mean, it's just from the DC, but we see it all across the board. They're bad guys, and look at what Marvel is doing with their genderification. You see what I did there? Genderification. Yeah. Their genderification of Marvel Comics. All these characters they have coming out are either apathetic, lazy, useless, or villainous. Right? They're not heroic at all. These characters they're making, they're simply not heroic. It's not about sacrifice. It's about me, 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 me all day long. And of course, this is the people who are writing it. They are extremely self-absorbed people, and this is really the center point of what makes an SJW progressive. Because when they will sit there and talk about how they help other people, they have to help those poor people, but they actually look down on them, right? And this toxicity is gotten into our comic books, and we've all recognized it. Whether we can enunciate out exactly what it is that's bugging you about it, this is part of it, right? And unfortunately, I don't know if it's going to change because they've been losing money for a long time, and you would just think the suits would have come in and stopped it, but they haven't. So, hey, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. Is George still here? Nope. He just
Hey,
came in
right
and
here,
dropped. There you are.
listening to the wonderful words of awesomeness.
Oh, thank you very much, George. But yeah, it is a fair point about that. But they did it in a very different way. I mean, having the villain have some sympathetic aspect to them that made them what they are is all well and good. But and that gives us a better, deeper understanding of the character. But in the end, they're still a villain that needs to be dealt with. Because everything comes down to a choice, you see. In the animated series, this concept is still true. But in these days, it's not true. It isn't. The villain is the victim truly, and therefore the victim should not be blamed. And this is politically we see the same thing going on, right? Don't blame the victim. It's always about listen and believe, and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, that's nonsense. We have a system set up that is based upon proof and evidence, not listen and believe. And this is what this is. It's that mentality. And
Well,
I don't even think. Let me finish real quick, George. I don't even think these people who are creating that, though doing these things over at these comic book, these writers and artists, I don't even think they're aware of it. I don't. I think it's something on subconscious level with them. I don't think they're. I don't think they're that smart, where they're actually aware of what they're doing and manipulating. I don't think so. I think it's a side effect of their delusion. I feel because it's not done well. If it was done well, then I would think something different.
well, I submit this to you, gentlemen, and everyone else listening.
Mhm.
How is this story of the Joker any different than the reality that we face every day with the Antifa, social justice warriors, all these is quote unquote maniacs in mass? The Joker right now, it looks like, is no different, or it could be. I think, is it an allegory or a metaphor of what's going on around today?
Possibly.
While
Well,
the good
it's
guy,
kind of it's kind of funny that you say that because our U.S. intelligence department has classified Antifa as a terrorist group.
That's right. Yep.
So
Black bloc. Yeah. And you know
so
what
there,
they I don't think they've done it, but what they should have also had done is make a Black Lives Matter a terrorist group too, because they are, right? Because and you can look at it on other sides. If people look on each other, like they love to talk about Nazis and neo Nazis, and the KKK comes up all the time, right? Now the concepts of the KKK are horrible. We're not interested in that. Who is, right? Oh, I'm sorry. About
right,
5,000 people worldwide. That's the consistency of the KKK. They're nothing in comparison to Antifa or Black Lives Matter or some of these other hate groups like Black Bloc. Black Bloc, of course, is Antifa, but they're nothing. But they keep going on and harping on it because everyone agrees that that concept is bad, right?
which is kind of funny because Antifa merchandise, Black Mask Comics,
mhm.
is a merchandising wing of
It
Antifa. So
is.
people
It is.
buying is actually supporting a domestic terrorist group
Well,
by U.S. intelligence standards. If you subscribe to what the U.S. intelligence say,
mhm.
but
Well,
that's up to you.
Obi-Wan Review says, "Have they killed many people?" If we're talking about Antifa in America, I don't know if there's been any actual deaths. I'm not sure about that. I don't have the statistics, but I do know they cause a lot of property damage and a lot of issues, and they do target people. In Europe, the Black Bloc, which is of course Antifa, there has definitely been deaths, right? As far as Black Lives Matters, there has definitely been deaths. Absolutely. When's the last time a KKK killed anybody? Long time ago. But they did kill people, for sure. For sure. They're a bad group. But these days,
Yep.
they're a bunch of weird, goofy nerds that try to sit and actually defend their point of view. It's what they all. Anytime you see them actually
isn't
speaking, they're just sitting there trying to defend themselves.
isn't the Democratic just the party, the KKK, what do you call, officialized?
Well, they're the ones who created it. I mean, it was created by the Democrats. I mean, that it was created that way. I don't want to get into a conversation about
Yeah.
KKK. I was just making a comparison, is all.
Yeah.
That's a whole
Let's
long
move on.
political conversation.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. I'm not really sure completely on that answer. But terrorism is terrorism. Anyway, let's talk
And
about this one real quick. Yeah.
one last point regarding IDW. If Disney is to sell off Marvel or make Marvel a brand,
Hmm.
there's no way they're going to buy IDW. The standard corporate mentality is that they don't want to spend money; they just want to hoard money. So they will license out their brand and just wait back and collect the licensing fees and whatever money comes out of it.
True, but the article we're going to cover next, which is talking about antitrust, falls into this concept because they also like to have the owning right and controlling rights of stuff, right? And so I think that the IDW has enough IP and is wide enough that it could be some interest to Disney. Is all I was saying. I have no evidence of this. I was just thinking it could be something they're eyeing, because this article here is very interesting one. Go ahead, Denelli.
All right, so antitrust expert weigh in on the DOJ's warning over Oscar rule changes. So, as for people who don't know, the Oscars has made some changes about blocking streaming sites from being eligible for the Oscars, and that they don't cancel and kind of blocking out, which becomes into a monopoly, which kind of triggers the antitrust laws. So the DOJs are kind of warning because they're not doing that. It's like, if you continue with this way that you're trying to conduct business, pushing out new competitors out, then that's a monopoly, and we're going to have to break it up, and you won't like it.
Which, we
So,
saw that happen a little bit in our community, right? In regards to Richard Meyer and his lawsuit against Mark Wade, because they're using terminology like tortious interference, but in actuality, you could look at that as an antitrust, right? Because
right.
Mark Wade, who's directly connected to Marvel comic books, is out there deliberately trying to stymie the efforts of another creator, and this, in essence, is what it is, right?
Well, not even Marvels anymore, but also what's it, Humanoids? Because he's now the creator director for that company as well.
Yeah, yeah. But it's an interesting little article, and this is not the first time this has come up about Hollywood, obviously, because it's something they're always trying to milk that cow as often as they can, right? And they get themselves in this trouble all the time. But this is really coming out of the Spielberg thing, I think, because Spielberg, who is a powerhouse, I mean, Spielberg wants, he gets, right? And
Pretty much.
Netflix has been pushing their way into the industry, which is, of course, very much against the Hollywood formula, the Hollywood group, right? And this is what is happening. It's basically the Oscars are trying to nudge them out. It's kind of the same thing we saw with Perlmutter over at Disney when it came to, say, the X-Men, right? Because he couldn't get over the fact that Fox owned it, and he was going to do everything he could to not mention the X-Men whatsoever, even though it was at their detriment, right? And this is why we had the Inhumans come in. That's why they had the Inhumans TV show. That's why we had Miss Marvel, for instance, is an Inhuman, not a mutant. It was all about this thing to shut down the X-Men and have nothing to do with the X-Men because we don't own it, right? We don't own the movie rights to it. It's a similar type of thinking, and it's interesting to me that Mr. Spielberg is taking such a hard front line on this, because he usually doesn't get particularly political, right? But interesting. Hollywood versus Netflix.
I'll give you an
Round
insight on
two.
this. Spielberg has aligned himself with Apple. So Apple is going to be a direct competition to Netflix. So listening to Spielberg complain about Netflix is not very accurate in terms of, oh, I just want to keep the movies pure. No, he's complaining about Netflix because he's aligned himself with Apple. He's going to be producing content like Netflix is producing content, but he's going to be doing it with Apple.
That's right. And if you guys recall, many years ago, oh geez, a long time ago, I try to remember, Heavy Rain. What was the second video game in the Heavy Rain series? Had the girl.
Light.
No, that's not helping, dude. Denali, you know what I mean? That video
Heavy
game,
Rain.
Heavy Rain, the second one that came out. They came out with another one. Well, that
I
one
mean,
anyway, that game that came out many years ago, right? When that came out, when that was coming out, you had
Hmm.
interviews with Spielberg and Lucas, actually. Peter Jackson too was involved in that conversation, and they were talking about the future is video games. They didn't think that movies had a future. They thought that video games was the way to
Oh,
go. So they started getting.
Fahrenheit.
No, 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 dude, no. It's a video game. It has nothing
Yeah,
to do with politics
that's
whatsoever.
no
Um,
Fahrenheit.
no,
That's
I
the
don't know.
game.
I don't think that's what it's
It
called.
was called Indigo Prophecy. Or are you talking about Beyond Two Souls?
Beyond Two Souls. Yes, yes, I'm talking about that one.
Okay. Okay.
But anyway, which is interesting games, by the way. But
Hmm.
they had those conversations, and they were talking about getting into the interactive video game storytelling. And when I heard them talking about it, I was like, well, I really hope that's not true, but I thought it was cool. Like, all right, hey, getting like Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg involved in actual video game making, that would be cool. Now, we, of course, what has happened is we've seen, because Spielberg, George just mentioned Spielberg's been talking about this for years and he ain't done nothing, right? But what we have seen happen is Guillermo del Toro get 100% on board with Kojima, and
Yep.
that is looking very fascinating. And I think George's point is a fair one. It's Spielberg is making it look like this is not real filmmaking, which is nonsense. But actually,
Right.
it's self-serving in the end. Yeah.
Well, here's another point regarding these games that you're talking about. It was Spielberg that actually pioneered the narrative storyline in these big games.
Yeah.
Before he got involved, remember I think it was Saving Private Ryan.
It's a good
They
movie.
were making war of they were making the World War II narrative games. I believe it was Call of Duty.
Call of
But
Duty.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, well, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I know Spielberg was the one who actually pushed the narrative to be injected into the game system, so it
Wow.
wasn't just a drop dead silly shoot 'em up game.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. And like I said, he's been talking about it for quite a while. I mean, that was a while back, Beyond Two Souls, which was an interesting game, by the way. But I like those kind of narrative stories. It's not an actual standard video game. It's really just you're kind of playing a game, playing a story. But I like them. It's also like the Wolf Amongst Us, what are the Telltale Games? Now they went and
Right.
killed themselves because they're a bunch of morons and they couldn't just be leave well enough alone, and they murdered themselves, which is unfortunate because the formula that they were doing was really nice, but they just went and got too greedy, unfortunately, and they literally murdered themselves, suicide, right? Anyway, it's an interesting conversation. Antitrust in Hollywood is not a new topic. You can go over the years and see it happens all the time, actually. Yeah, this battle with Netflix, it's inevitable, though. It is inevitable because Netflix is not going anywhere. Matter of fact, what we're going to see is a big old shootout between Netflix, Disney's live service, whatever they call it, and Amazon. Hulu is, I don't think, is going to be part of this the scenario. But
Uh,
you're going to see those three just duking it out, and that's going to be good for us, man. Because competition in their market is awesome.
I have to point out that Disney now owns was it 2/3 of Hulu? They're not going to
Yeah.
create their own platform when the technology already exists. They're
Oh,
just
no,
going to
no. They already have their own
take over.
platform, actually. And we've already had this discussion in depth, George. We think what they're going to do is they're going to have their own service that's going to bang heads with the other big two, and they're going to put their more questionable content on Hulu.
Ah, I see. Very good.
Yeah, man, we've talked about that many times over the intervening months, and I'm pretty sure from all the things we've seen and the evidence we looked at and the stories we talked about that that's probably the direction they're going. But you never know. Yeah, who knows what the future holds? But but we're in for some big fireworks coming, and it doesn't matter what Hollywood thinks because Hollywood either adapts or dies. It's kind of like the dinosaur media. on the TV. They're
Hmm.
being so sensational and so political with their stuff because they're trying to get attention, but they're not going to survive this. And the ones that are that are trying to make an online presence are the ones that are going to have a future, right? Because you can't stop YouTube, you can't stop the internet. It's unstoppable, right? Even this nonsense that Europe tried to do, they're basically control and penny pinch everything with this rule that they put
Oh,
in. It's not going to work.
here's a thing, because of their own laws. Um, Twitter and some other media had to take down their go to vote, say yes to vote, and all that stuff, because it was against the law that they passed themselves. So it's
Yeah.
the law that they passed are already biting them in the butts.
Well, I personally hope all the states, because they're no longer countries, so we'll just call them states. All the states in the EU, I hope they pass that law in full, and I hope that all these social media just black them out. I want to see Europe completely blacked out, because when that happens, the people will finally have enough and stand up and end the nonsense that's going on over there, right? But because they've just painted themselves in a corner. They gave the social media companies an ultimatum. And here's the thing: is Europe valuable enough to them over the loss of huge revenues in America and many other places around the world, including Japan and say China? Because China doesn't want that nonsense either. Now, China might manipulate it as far as what things politically are allowed to say, but that is just simply communism. That's tyranny. It's not about money and business, right? So is the European market valuable enough opposed to the monies that they make in the world market? Because this is what these idiot politicians over in Europe have done. They've painted themselves into a corner, and I hope they pay for it. Oh God, I hope they burn. Because desperately, Europe desperately needs to literally burn that crap out, or otherwise they're dead. And that sounds like reactionary or exaggeration, but it's not. If you're not paying attention what's going on in Europe, I would offer you to go and take a look at it, because it's really bad. It's shockingly bad what's going on in Europe, and I'm actually think that we're on the verge of real civil war in Europe right now. And that, like I said, that sounds to be overreaction, but it's really not. And that's not a good thing. We don't need more bloodshed in Europe. We don't need it. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But let us finish the show out today with a odd story, Denali.
All right. Akira movie secures $18.5 million for tax credit from California. So the production company, uh, Appen's Way, which is Leonardo DiCaprio's
Hmm.
production, has secured that to film in California. So they're going to be filming the live action Akira movie in California, which is why you got the tax credit, which is one step forward of making this possible. Whether we want this movie live action or not, that's another topic to be said,
Well,
to be discussed.
that's not what I see in the article. I get what you're saying. Ooh, we got to get a live action Akira. Interesting, right? We talk about it. But that's not what this article brings to my mind, right? What I
Hmm.
see here is $18.5 million tax credit for a movie. Why should that be? Well, because we want to keep it in the state. Oh, okay, I get it. But it also, this kind of thinking tells you exactly why the richest state in America is actually the poorest state in America, right? Because they're actually the fifth economy in the world. That's how big the money that comes in California is. They're literally the number five economy in the world. But yet every year they end in debt and deficit. How is that possible? Right? Well, it's possible because they're a bunch of progressive idiots that giving out free drugs and free stuff and tax credits and all this kind of stuff. And of course, not only is California the in essence the poorest state in the union, they're also the one that has the least amount of equality, the least desirable living conditions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're like on the bottom of every damn list. But yet it's California, right? Why is the crown jewel of America, this absolute disaster money pit, right? And it's politic. And we see it's socialism again. Every time we look at socialism, this is what happens. And no, they don't learn
Yep.
because just like Obama was saying, and these other guys are saying, we can do it better. They always say the same thing. And like, no, you can't. You can't. You can't do it better. You're not smarter. You're not important enough. You're not good enough. You can't do it better than has been tried so many times. And all it ever does is fail. And that's what I see in this article, actually. I don't see, ooh, great Akira live action. I see $18.5 million tax credit. What?
18.5 million tax credit is actually not a lot of money. That's pretty much a
It's
tax credit
it's
for development.
it's a grain of
Eh,
sand on the pile that is ever
that's
growing,
right.
George, is
That's
the
right.
point.
You know what stands out to me? Hi guys, by the way.
Hey,
Hello.
What stands out to me is the secures. Okay, that
yeah.
word of this,
Mhm.
because they had to secure this tax credit in order to possibly be able to afford a better possibility of making the movie. They had to secure it because California has such exorbitant tax rates. Other states, such as Texas, would have said, "Oh yeah, we're not going to worry about giving you a tax credit because we're just not going to tax you that much to begin with."
Yeah. Yeah, well, that would make sense, right? But it actually brings.
Right.
But George, it actually brings into mind to respond to you. We had recently Tim Pool, who does YouTube stuff, became kind of got himself in the limelight here for a little bit, and I actually saw him on Dave Rubin's the other day, and he basically got himself into a conversation with the creator of Twitter and some lady he brought along with him. And
Oh
The
yes,
she
I
was,
saw that.
attorney. Yeah.
huh? Yeah, well, she was some kind of lawyer type person. It made sense.
Yeah. She
But
was the owner of Twitter attorney.
okay, there you go. And she was a pain in the ass in the interview, by the way. The
Doing her
thing,
job.
which she was doing her job, absolutely she was. But here's the thing that I took out of all of that, the one little statement that really sold it is the fact that he had made comments to the Twitter guy about mistakes, and he said, well, we're not perfect, we just made some mistakes, right? And he says, yeah, but dude, if it's not a mistake, it's millions of little mistakes, and it builds into a huge pile. And that dude, you could see in his face, I mean, excuse me, you could see that he got it, right? The lawyer didn't because she's just doing her job. But I mean, the pile of sand is a concept is what's really important, and this is why California is dying. It's not $18.5 million alone, George. It's everywhere, everything they're doing, right? It is little pieces of grains of sand sitting on that pile, and that pile is freaking enormous. That it literally takes the fifth economy of the world and brings it down to the poorest in America. The poorest in America.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Yes.
I don't know if it's the poorest.
No, it
Matter of
is.
fact,
Statistically, it is.
well, okay, maybe statistically, but when you look out across America, there's other places I think that might represent Neo Tokyo better, right?
Like,
If I'm correct, wasn't parts of Neo Tokyo absolutely run down in Akira?
oh, it was definitely post-apocalyptic like, or dystopian.
Yeah. So
Dystopian
it really
would be the better word.
so it
Yeah.
should really be filmed. It should be filmed in Detroit,
Oh, that's
where it looks like a war
Yeah.
zone.
That'd be a good
that
point.
that's sorry to say this, but that's not really relevant because that's special effects, green screen work, and all that stuff. You're talking about a actual green screen studio or a lot studio that's able to gather X number of actors and supporting actors and crowd people in a quiet, confidential place where the press will not see it. That's what's concern. Here in Toronto, we got a huge sound studio by the waterfront. And there's also another similar system of gigantic buildings that can hold the Titanic if you want, right? In Pinewood Studios, also in was it Georgia, and also in California. What this is California literally trying to make sure that they don't lose another production to was it Georgia or to Toronto or to Pine Studio
Yeah, I
or
know.
heck, even New Zealand, where Lord of the Rings stuff is.
Yeah, I get that point, but it's
Yeah.
not the point that I'm making. But I would ask this other question. Sorry about that, Chad. I hit the
But
wrong
it is
button.
part of the point you're making, Chester. It's because their taxes are high because of their socialistic views
Mhm,
that they're driving companies away to where it isn't high,
mhm.
and um, they're going for those studios that cost less because at the end there is a budget that they have to meet to make these films.
Well,
So it's leaning into
it
your
does, and you're
comment.
right, and but it also it shows in a complete level of unfairness, right? You're sitting here and you're willing to give this huge tax credit to a single movie for Mr. DiCaprio, but yet you're taxing the death out of all your people there that have any money to be taxed, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Right.
slap in the
The
face.
here's the poverty line for California. You want to know what the poverty line of California, guys, is? For those who don't live in California, it's $50,000. Meaning, if you're not making at least $50,000, you're at or below the poverty line because of everything that they're doing.
Well,
Um,
if you're a household and you're making less than $50,000 in this modern world, you're hurting.
mhm, right, but I'm saying in California specifically, that's their poverty line.
Yeah.
Where in any other state, you're looking that $50,000 is these decently living.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. But hmm, interesting. I guess the last point of this to be actually talk about what Denali was talking about in the beginning would be, what do you guys think the chances are that they will have, especially with the climate in Hollywood and DiCaprio seemingly on board with it? What do you think the chances of this having any non-Asian actors in it at all?
Oh,
They're sure going to put Asian actors in there because they don't want a repeat of Ghost in the Shell.
But see, here's the thing though. Ghost in the Shell, if you actually read the manga or you saw the original movie, you understand that those are not Japanese people. They're not Japanese characters in front of you anyway, right? So it actually
No,
made
we.
sense that she was not Japanese because they
Oh,
weren't Japanese.
time out. You're talking to rational people.
Yes, yes, but my point being,
You're talking to rational people.
Yes, but
You're
Akira has
talking to rational
mainly
people.
Japanese
You
people
are
in it.
talking to rational people.
All right, fine, Denali. But it's a fair point.
the the important question is, when they make Akira, is his motorcycle going to have this United States Air Force symbol on the side of the motorcycle?
Ah, that's a good point.
No, they're
Hoorah!
going to take it. They're going to take it off.
And metal. But anyway, enough of that. So, um,
Can we get back to
yeah,
talking about Brie Larson?
no.
You missed it. We were talking about her earlier.
Did we? Well, did we
Yeah.
talk about tickets for Avengers Endgame? Did we talk about that?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit.
Hundreds of dollars on eBay? Okay, fine. This is crazy. This is a crazy world we live in.
It is.
Yep.
Yep.
Not unsurprising because Avengers Endgame might be a good film.
I hope it is. The
Just
Infinity
might,
War,
come
well,
on.
Infinity War was amazing, so I hope it'll be good.
This is Return of the Jedi. Infinity War was The Empire Strikes Back. And now we're looking at Return of the Jedi of the trilogy.
Yeah.
Taking over, where much larger and bigger than Star Wars was the first time around. And good times was had by all.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see, and I'm looking forward to it. My wife is. I think we do have pre-tickets for Endgame, and we're also going to go see the. What's the other big movie that's coming out here? I know my wife had mentioned we're going to go see it. What's the other big?
Shazam is coming this
Shazam,
Friday, I
that's the
believe.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
Shazam. And looking forward to that one too, because that sounds like a lot of fun. It's that is like a pure schlock movie, kind of like Aquaman. And Aquaman it was too it was too bloated, really. But this one seems to be nice and tight. So I'm
You
looking
sure
forward
it
to seeing
wasn't?
that.
You sure it wasn't waterlogged?
Let's
Dad
see.
jokes. Dad
Simps.
jokes. We
Yes.
got a dad joke here.
Simpsons Joshua says, if Chester once wasn't explaining everything while it was happening, I wouldn't really be able to follow it, and I'm not sure if I fully understand what it was about. Sorry, dude. Do your best. But anyway, Denali, go ahead and take us out of here, man. Oh well, before I do that, real quick, of course, on
Yeah.
Indiegogo we have, of course, George here. He has his Joe King, which is in demand. You can go check out. So he had a successful project. Congratulations to you. Of course, the rest of us here are part of the Tales from Beyond the Gate project. That is a big old huge book with a ton of artists on it, and a lot of really good effort going in that book. And help us go over there and help us get over that line because this really be a cool book that's trying to showcase some of the rather unknown talent that is in our community that we'd really like to see them get some more attention because when you see the art in it, it's absolutely stellar.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good. So, Denali.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining for this long comics news today. Sorry for getting a little bit political. No, not sorry, but we're going to continue on. Tomorrow we'll have a special guest, Sporkman Studios, Charles Bodetti, who's going to be joining us because he has recently launched on Indiegogo. Sporkman goes to Japan again, so we're very excited, and we hope that you'll join us when we interview him. On Friday Fanspeak, we'll be talking to the creators of Thrashers, Michael Johnstone, for that show, so join us for there. Tonight at less than an hour from now, it's going to be the Blacklist Studios Drawn and Core Pro Editions. And then tomorrow it's going to be the fan edition of Drawn and Quarter here on this channel. Then this Saturday is going to be Bunny Vision Movie Night, which will be the Princess Bride.
The Princess
we're going to be watching.
Bride. The Princess Bride.
We're going to be watching the Princess Bride.
Good one, man.
As you wish.
As you wish.
And
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable. Very quotable
and
movie.
then, exactly. And then we'll have TFT on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, barring that they don't shut us down for our conspiracy talk. Tinfoil hat.
Yeah, what are we talking about again on that one?
We never decided exactly what we're going to talk about that. I know it's going to be... Yeah.
No, we did decide. I thought we were going to talk about cryptids.
No.
Isn't that what we decided? Okay, well, we'll decide and we'll tell you tomorrow. But I'm pretty sure that's what we had said. But yeah, awesome.
Cryptics, first here, probably going to be the case. But as always, your perception shapes your reality, so always make it a good one.
Namaste.
Consume time.
Later, guys.
Aloha.